Before we start? Okay. Do you want me to on your email?
Yeah, on. Oh, it's
nice.
Okay. I need everyone to acquire a writing utensil. Pen, marker, highlighter,
I'll get one.
red, pen, marks.
Yeah, I got you guys.
Yeah, no, how many extra do you have?
Okay, here's somebody with a fun jelly roll. The pencil's fine. Gross. Okay. Wow.
Okay, anyway. So we're playing people bingo. And so I have these rules, but the other rule is that you can't have more than one. You can't have the same person to make your bingo. Does that make sense? So like I'll hand these out. Anyways. And you have to go around and make bingo. But you can't talk to two people at once. You can't eavesdrop. You have to ask someone before you go. What?
Oh, how's it go?
Yeah.
No, I'm
You
ready.
can write down the name. The thing is that your bingo can't be. They have to be like 5 different.
I just asked how to have a partnership with if anyone wants to, and you're going to it's like not a single person to write spot. Right, so
Right, that makes sense. All right, you've got to get up and talk to each other now. Go bingo. But you can only.
Oh, can you sign my hat? Okay, and this thing is like actually that's not even my name.
You know what I'm here for?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. You gotta make a line.
Yeah, I want you to sign my
Okay. Here you go. Anything you want.
You ever done the work?
Tattoo. Okay.
Sylvia, what do you got? Have you invited
Oh, I play. Oh, I've never been a party.
You got something?
Hell yeah. If you sign my house now, I can sign your house.
Perfect.
Sorry.
I signed your bro too.
There you go.
Have you been to a state?
Wait, I really want
I think it was just I went to this weekend or something,
bingo! I got bingo!
I already got bingo. Thank you very much.
It was a brown. I had bingo. I had bingo. I guess.
I have a cat. Yeah, I got bingo.
I got
A large little bingo. I feel really like that.
Only if Jumper was here. I have the Android. I also have
Who has an allergy?
I have a lot of allergies. Who listens to country music? I do.
Anybody have a cat?
Where's Noah? I know where country music. Hell yeah, okay. Okay, dude, I got my license over winter break. Bingo. Wait, you
I have double bingo.
yeah, I think so.
Oh, wait. Does anyone have a cat?
I have one.
Awesome. I got it for me. Yes.
Have you?
Yeah.
What was it?
I forgot. It was something.
No, I don't remember. Or you have them on here You're just like, I gotta put paper.
I know you attended the friendship conference.
Actually, I do. Every time I get a oh,
Yeah, I'm triple bingo now.
who's born in a
Yeah.
I just had a
I need a
okay, I got
What do you mean this man has triple bingo?
yeah, I need okay,
Hey, Chantal, this is we're doing a community builder right now, so it's a little chaotic. Bear with us.
I don't think you can do twice.
I do now. Yeah, I just like I have
Okie dokie, guys. That's the end of our time for community building. So, the value of your bingo is personal pride. But I think I would. With that, who's talking first for partnerships? Shivani's the clicker over there? Can you do the click?
That was fine. I learned a lot.
Learn a lot, right? Hey, yo. You gotta calm down. Too many bingos. But with that,
Many bingos makes Jack a doughboy.
mock shop workshop. John, you're not blowing on the mic.
All right, hello. Hello, everyone. I don't know if this mic is working. Do we have anybody on Zoom or?
One person on Zoom,
Okay,
but you're right here, so it's okay.
yeah. all right. So today we'll be going over a mock shop workshop. If you remember, we did something similar to this last semester. That was more to introduce sort of the peer education model and a little bit more based around SAW. This time we'll be doing a really deep dive into HIV and AIDS, which is a very common topic used at these mock shop workshops. So up here we have a photo of the workshop in action. So that is ATL actually teaching a workshop on HIV/AIDS. So it's nice, very appropriate for the topic today. This is happening at the 42-kilometer mile marker village, which, if you remember from our Jeopardy meeting 2 weeks ago, is how a lot of these villages are numbered using the closest kilometer marker in this case. Is this clicker working? There we go. All right, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kylie to start presenting a little bit on what HIV and AIDS is. Yeah. I just got it, man.
Okay. So what is HIV and AIDS? So HIV stands for human immunodeficient virus. And so basically it's a virus that attacks your immune system. So there's two like classification of HIV. So there's HIV-1 and HIV-2. These make up both like there's two different epidemics in the world of HIV. So then HIV is actually a family of retroviruses. Actually, I don't know what genus was, but it codes for 15 different proteins. So a lot happens with HIV. And then HIV-1. So there's like subclasses of each HIV groups. So one is the most prominent one that like we have research on. And so there's like subclades or subtypes A through K, which are really important because this like determines treatment for each individual. So treatment, like we have so many different treatments and it varies. And although there's not necessarily a cure, it helps reduce the symptoms. And then there's like 3 strains or categories that they're divided into, which is the new, the outlier, and the major. The major accounts for most of the HIV and AIDS epidemic. And then HIV-2, there's not really much research on it, but they are thinking about like doing like the HIV-1, the subtypes, but they only have A through H. They've been proposed, they haven't been implemented yet. So who knows if that's going to happen. I think it was proposed in like 2018. And then AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And so this is actually the last stage of infection of HIV itself. And a lot of people actually don't reach this stage because we have a lot of preventative treatment for HIV. So it's not as common anymore to see people with AIDS, but when HIV was first discovered, it was. And so the way you can tell if someone has AIDS is there's these CD4 cells. And so there's a certain range, like your normal should fall under, but if it exceeds 2,100 cells per cubic nanometer of blood, then typically that's a high indicator that you probably have AIDS. The more cells you have per like millimeter of blood, the worse like the AIDS is. And then without treatment, someone lasts normally up to 3 years, but it's most of the time, usually probably, I think 2 years. But with treatment, someone can last like 5 years. So our little structure of HIV.
Oh, yeah.
See, there's the little structure of it. So like I said before, HIV is a retrovirus. So it's approximately 100 nanometers in diameter. And the main part, it contains a lipid envelope. And this allows for the GP41 and GP120 to attach to the host cell, which is really important because these proteins have what they call the ENV gene, which targets the host cell specifically, and allows those two proteins to attach or lock onto the host cell. And then under the envelope itself is P17, P7, P24, and P6, which are encoded by the GAB gene, which actually allows for like the infections part of the like molecule to be produced, or it like builds it while inside or while under, I guess, the lipid envelope. So you can kind of see the different ones, like where they are. Like there's the P6, the P17 is like right there. And so then this would be the outer lipid envelope. And then, of course, in the core, you have 2 different 10 viral RNA genome strands. This is used later for like replication. And you also have protease, integrase, and reverse transcriptase inside the actual viral core, which is right there. Okay, and so kind of the stages of replication. The first one's attachment, which I briefly mentioned. And so that's when like the GP120 binds to the CD4, and then that like allows it through the ENB gene to attach to the host cell, and it binds to the receptor to the host. And then after that is entry, and that's when like macrophages carry CCR5 co-receptors, which allow the cell, like the virus, to enter the host. So it allows like the viral core to go through, so it allows the RNA to enter into the host. After that, you have the 3 enzymes. So first, the reverse transcriptase, that is used to transcribe the RNA to double-stranded DNA, which is then used by integrase, which is entered, it takes the DNA and enters it into the genome of the host cell itself, and that changes it to a provirus. And then the provirus acts as a template for mRNA transcription, and then viral replication occurs, and the RNA is like combined or undergoes recombination with the provirus, and that causes the infection itself to start occurring. And then as time goes on, it just grows more and more, and it undergoes replication again and again until you are infected.
We can go over the history of the epidemic. The HIV/AIDS virus is believed to have originated in non-human primates in West Central Africa and transferred to humans in early 20th century. The transfer is believed to have happened during hunting of wild chimpanzee. The first time HIV/AIDS was mentioned officially was in the CDC Morbid and Mortality Weekly Report, 1981. In the United States, the disease was first seen in a group of gay men, about 40 people in the area of New York and California. And since the disease was seen in like marginalized communities, the public and policymakers were very slow to respond. Looking at the history, the HIV epidemic highlights like amazing discovery and fierce advocacy, but at the same time, it also shows how stigma around sexuality and disparities based on race can affect disease. And then if we look at the scientific timeline of the cures and treatments that are available right now, as we went over the previous slide, the first time the term AIDS was used was in September 1982. And then when we talk about drugs, the first breakthrough came as in the form of AZT, which was made available in 1987. The major advantages of AZT was that it allowed people already suffering from AIDS to live longer, and also could be used to prevent like pregnancy transfer. So if the mother was suffering from HIV/AIDS, we could use AZT to prevent it from being transferred to the child. And then another very effective method was discovered in 1996, which was the antiretroviral therapy. This very quickly became the method of preferred method in the US, and we saw a drop of around 47% in mortality rate. And then also the testing improved over the years, with the first oral test approved in 1994, home kit approved in 1996, and the rapid test approved in 2002. Another breakthrough, I keep having to say breakthrough, but another breakthrough was in 2012, which was PrEP. So PrEP is essentially a procedure where medical professionals can like identify individuals with high risk of getting the HIV, and then they can provide them regular testing, safer sexual intercourse methods, etc. Okay, where we are now currently. So despite these scientific advances, serious challenges remain in like the global outlook of the virus, of the HIV/AIDS pandemic, because even though in the US we have overcome the stigma around it, it is not the same in many of the other developing countries. Second up, a safe and effective HIV vaccine, long-acting antiretrovirals are the main things that the scientific community is working towards. Also in the US, ending the HIV epidemic, a plan for America, is essentially the name of the program that is being deployed right now. So by the CDC. So it is a method where along with PrEP, the CDC and medical professionals can sustain like virus suppression.
So now we're gonna do a free test because the whole like partnership presentation, the way we're doing it is through like a mock chop workshop. So how it works is like, well, actually the free test is taken more in the beginning, and then like we have that one. We just wanted to give you guys some background information before we go off into small groups. So like we're not in class, like even though we did learn a lot, like Kylie's part is definitely like Dr. Pinkle energy, or like the gem body, you guys might be in the future. So I think as of now, just like kind of think to yourself, or I don't know. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay. So first question, HIV virus can transmit to everyone. Actually, no, I'm not gonna read it. I'm gonna just give you guys 1 minute to stare at the screen. But yeah, I think it would be cool if you guys just like took your phone out and like putting your notes up or something, because you'd be surprised like how much like has happened since then, but like the way that like the public says it's like, oh, like we're over it, it's done. But it's something that's still like very like probable. Yes.
Wait, can you, what does the second one mean? I keep thinking. Like you, are you saying like you make transmitted by using the same like? Okay.
Trevor's like finally some representation. Toilet Chicago. Very niche.
Also, the seventh bullet is in a different font. I'm sorry about that. I really struggled with having everything in the same font. That's not fair. I'll probably give you guys just like 30 more seconds.
All right, so we're going to be trying out a new model for our small group activities. We're going to be using what's called the puzzle format. So in this sense, you guys are going to become the experts on the particular topic and then end up teaching it to other small groups later on. So experimental, but hopefully it should work out okay. It looks like we should have enough people to do all 4 groups, I think. So we're going to split you off like into 4, and then I'll explain a little bit more about what exactly you guys are going to be doing. What exactly you guys are going to be doing in your groups. So should I count me on turning up 1,
2,
3, 4.
Actually, I guess I'm going to hold you off to that. So you'll be 4 then. So then you'll be 1. 1. Okay. And then Maria will be 2. Samir can jump to 3, and then Akash can jump to 4. Or sorry, Tyler, you jump to 3, and then Akash can jump to 4. So we're going to have group 1 over here, group 2 over there, group 3 over here, and group 4 over here. If you guys want to split up.
Okay, Johnsel, if you're there, we're group 2. Anyone else who's online, I'm just not seeing you. Group 2. Johnsel is the only one I'm seeing right now.
Like I said, you guys are going to
Maria, Harry, Emma, I'm Ajit.
So group 1, for example,
I'm not gonna be on camera.
symptoms of HIV. So this is just a pretty general topic. You guys can take it directions, maybe early signs and symptoms, what to look like as progress through the right stages, how to detect it. We do religion as treatment and cure. There's been a lot of research in recent years, so maybe changes to that. Different methods to deliver cures, different diagnoses. Group 3, you're going to look at how is it transmitted, what populations are particularly affected by it, things like for all of that. And then group 4, you're going to be looking at the historical and context of these things. So think back to the right
Fondly thinking back to the regular.
There's a huge direction you can go in any one of these, but sort of within your groups, find what sort of direction you guys want to go together. At the end of this research section, we're going to take one person from each of the groups and then form a new group. So each of the second set of groups will have one person from each of the old groups, and then in those new groups, we're going to be teaching each other about what you learned from your previous group. So make sure that in your current groups, everyone has an understanding, everyone has some notes, everyone can share about the information you guys are learning right now. So that's really try to everyone has a general understanding of what's going on. Okay, cool.
Are we making like a PowerPoint slide or just like talking about it?
Up to you, really. So you're the expert now, so however you think you might best be shared. So I mean, yeah, if you want to self-PowerPoint slide, that's fine. If you guys prefer to talk, it's up to you. There's like so many people are going to be presenting now that we didn't want to describe too much to you guys.
One more thing. So the pre-test, go back to that. So we purposely have those questions because they sort of related to some of your groups. So if you could touch on that, I'll probably put the questions in the group meet for you guys to look at. And
yeah, so if the term pre-test implies post-test, so make sure that in your groups, if one of these questions relates to your section, you'll be able to teach the other people what the correct answer to that is. So you're all peer educators, you're also all going to be the peers that are being educated. So have at it.
Okay. So recap for anyone who's watching the recording or John's right now. We're group 2, so we're looking at treatments and cures for HIV. Don't know. Do I normally narrate this? Yeah, it's probably ready you fair.
He totally doesn't.
Do you not want? Look at the camera. What are you gonna do? Something like that.
Did you find anything interesting?
About treatments.
Yeah.
So there's this main treatment called antiretroviral therapy. Basically prevents the virus from multiplying as much.
Yeah.
Because how HIV works, of course, is it attacks the lymphocytes right in the immune system. So by preventing the HIV from multiplying as much, it's
You said a smaller viral load body.
small, yeah, so the immune system can handle it. So that's very general.
Yeah. Let's keep it simple. Yeah, let's make it easy to remember.
Yeah. And also it's important because if you have a lower viral load, it's harder to transmit to other people. So
It's a big thing, yeah. That's what PrEP is really important for, right? Lowering viral load. I think they have really good messaging too, right? That's
What?
about just remaining technical and
Oh, yeah. There's a recent vaccine that was developed, am I right? I'm not remembering it.
It's an mRNA type thing. I don't think it's, I don't know if it's rolled out. I'm gonna get super specific on it. We talked about treatments for I'm looking at lifestyle changes right now, or lifestyle adjustments to best manage it.
Oh, for treatment cures.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna send this. Download this. And then I'm gonna send
Would you say you found on that?
One of my classes we just talked about HIV, AIDS, with buccal block reduction.
Oh, yeah, I took this class last semester, but I have no idea, I didn't remember.
No, it's for the global health class, but you came and talked about it in that class.
I guess no.
Good, I think we have two main things that we've talked about, so like different antiretroviral treatments, there's a vaccine that was a recent development, don't quite remember much about.
It says.
And then PrEP.
There's also this one I'm gonna send it in the group too.
Sweet.
Do you include prevention treatment?
So you guys-
So should we include prevention in treatment?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, prevention might overlap a little bit with transmittance, but it is important to make your point that that works as well.
Oh, Dr. Sherman.
Yeah, I'm sure it's.
There you go.
Wait, Jade, are you doing like lifestyle stuff?
You can look at that too. Eating healthily isn't the craziest advice, I think.
Yeah.
It's all the standard. Okay. Alcohol and drug use can affect the liver, which is how the body processes anti-HIV drugs. So that's one. All right, keep your liver in tip-top shape. Make sure your treatments can actually take effect. And the effects on your immune system from drinking. Okay, this is a lesson. Stay with alcohol, okay?
You're telling me.
Moderation.
You're telling me.
I know you don't
Yes,
drink.
Carrie.
I know you don't drink, Harry, so it's okay. I just want you to stay that way. Okay? When you're 21, drink in moderation, safely.
I don't know, Carrie tried to sneak an Irish coffee yesterday when we were at Sitwell's.
No.
It's a joke.
Harry. Irish coffee.
I just didn't know it might contain.
Was this Irish coffee good?
Oh,
I
was
like,
it? Oh, so
yeah,
have you
yeah.
been to, what's the other one?
Upside?
They have the Nutty Irish. one.
Oh, I have
It's a mildly insensitive name, but it was really good.
What is it?
Huh?
What is it?
I can't give you the flavor profile. It's just really good.
Okay.
It's just what Shweta.
It was so nutty Irish.
Thanks, Emma.
Any new developments, folks? Oh, Emma's got a whole bunch of developments. She's done everything in the group
It's all
meeting.
in the group meeting. Should we start blasting information to the group meeting? Oh, this is our notes.
Spamming. Okay.
Oh, you got a theme and everything. Wow.
I think it's important to add prevention methods.
Yeah, I think so. That's part of it. That's care.
That's something I wanted to talk about. Breastfeeding.
I see we're all on the same website.
It seems the main concerns from living with HIV are going to be your metabolism and your immune system, which makes sense.
In fact, like, I mean,
What's up, Barry?
It's gonna be snowing when I go back to Chicago.
Seriously? In Chicago or here?
It's 30 degrees though.
Right now?
Yeah.
Windy City, right?
Yeah, right now 62 here.
It's been a nice day, except for that torrential
It's
rain.
really
Actually.
nice. Honestly, I really enjoyed that.
Really. Miranda was on her way to Windy City. She's like, "Is it gonna rain?" I looked outside. And I was like, "Maybe it might drizzle." And then I look up 20 minutes later when she gets there. She's just so
Yeah.
Yes, it was raining hard. Oh, vaccinations are important for all the vaccinations are important for all the opportunistic diseases that can.
Oh,
be-
like HIV to like cuts and stuff like that, is what you're talking about?
I mean, just because when you're HIV positive, you're going to be more immunocompromised in general
Okay.
to anything. So getting your standard vaccine is gonna be more important. Don't know if that's a prevention. That's not really a prevention method, but
Well, I mean.
it's prevention from the worst side of HIV. I think,
Yeah.
right? So that's what most folks are probably affected by.
Will probably help you prevent you getting AIDS. Right?
I don't think it'll stop you progressing to AIDS.
Okay.
It'll stop you from the worst side effect of it, which is
Okay.
just
Death.
dying from something that's preventable. Yeah. I don't think you can stop progressing to AIDS. It'll eventually.
I mean, you could prevent it from getting there. I think it just depends on the individual.
Yeah.
And on like what access to, what
What
kind
you-
of treatments that you have.
Right, but like, have you guys? I mean, like.
I'm looking to-
Do we have any thoughts for the chat? Do we have any thoughts for the chat?
Johnson. Nope. Just chilling, just vibing. I guess on the point of prevention, trying to keep it from progressing to AIDS for as long as possible. Maintaining your immune system help
Sorry, what?
to prevent it from shifting into AIDS for as long as possible. Ensuring that your immune system is getting the best care it can for as long as it can. That's it.
On one of the bullet points, it said getting stan, but it's because it didn't like load all the way. It's getting standardized vaccinations. And I literally was like staring at this and like, what is stan? Like, how do you get stan?
Getting Staniel. Apparently, it's not surprising. Living with HIV can increase the risk of stress, anxiety, and depression. It's not crazy to think about. So that part of treatment is the mental health side. But
Yes.
Living with HIV can increase the risk of stress, depression.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me.
It's surprising. Chronic diseases, man, they really.
Yeah, that does sound stressful.
Foods. Don't eat raw. Oh, it's just saying foods that might.
Is there people
What?
trying to
Should it,
It makes sense. Just all the foods that have their bacteria.
That'd be helpful. Phone just doesn't work.
Any ideas? Any Planned Parenthood notes, data, any specific?
That's a great question. I always like to plug Careful, which is a local org in Cincinnati. They're very cool. They have about a gazillion resources available to people who are living with this condition. So it might be worth it to plug them here too. They offer a lot of testing.
That's a good idea. We talk about Careful a lot here for good reason.
Okay, so it's like.
They're actually probably a great place to get all of this information.
Careful.
I'm gonna send it to me, but they're
You can put it on the docs Emma has.
yes, I will do that too.
Easier.
Right, I'm gonna put it first in the group meet because the
Yeah.
doc isn't loading very well now. Actually, Emma, if you could, if
Do you
you
want me to
have,
just-
if one of you can access it and put it to the.
What if I just get in here? Oh, sorry. Whoever's editing, is that Perry?
Yeah.
Or
Is
these,
that Perry?
treatment options and since all of, like,
Yeah, let me just get a line. Okay, wait, there.
Oh, so I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's
Oh,
okay.
it's
There you
just
go.
like a
There you go.
resource
So it's your world now.
for any
We're good now.
who is like imposter with HIV or people want to get tested or yeah, they have a lot. And there's a chapter
We're
with
good.
the society that serves like it.
okay, I'm gonna add. Okay,
Okay, I just linked it onto the treatment side.
oh, that's fine.
I don't know if we need full slide. We don't need to. We won't be able to present a slide. Is the thing. Well, individually we will be able to. We can sit down after.
Okay, yeah. That's fine.
I don't know if there's much more to add. But we have.
Yeah, it's a lot of information. Well done.
Wait, have you guys heard that yet? I remember.
What's up? Ours I think was pretty easy to trust. It's like, yeah, two treatments. We kind of developed vaccines, but Emma, how are you?
Good. I'm good. I just finished, like, I think I took 3 exams this week, so it's really nice to be done with that.
Yeah. Are you going anywhere cool for spring break?
Hard to say that yet. I know my boyfriend wants to go to Hawaii with his parents.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask. Yeah.
I may or may not go, but I'm not gonna like ask to go, you know what I mean? But if
I
he doesn't
can.
go,
Can I ask him?
but if he doesn't go, then I'll probably just move some friends. I at least want to go somewhere for like a day.
Yeah, if you're not going with him, let me ask.
I'm in Chicago.
Where
It's gonna be snowing, bro. I like the best sales pitch here. Come to Mansfield, Ohio.
What is there?
The Chicago of Ohio.
What is there to do?
Chicago.
What's the Chicago?
No,
No, it's not.
it's the heart of Ohio.
Absolutely
It's the
not.
heart of Ohio.
Yeah, they say that.
And it's in the heart.
People from Mansfield say that.
It's because that's what it's called. It's also used to be called Danger City.
Interesting.
Were you from Mansfield too? Or is that just Noah?
No, it's not. He's from Amanda. I'm from Mansfield.
Oh,
Shivani's from Mansfield.
that's awkward. Okay, not two people.
Yeah, me and Shivani. So that's 2 people. You're not wrong though, in a way. He's not from Danger City though.
Really? Chicago's dangerous.
Resources on the presentations here that relate to how Saul addresses some of the issues around HIV and AIDS. The first one is CHOP, the Community Health Outreach Program, which we're involved in right now. They produce CHOP workshops that will then teach people about HIV and AIDS. Additionally, there's the Income Generation Program, which is housed under the Healthcare House. The shelter that Saul provides for women that are living with HIV and AIDS. And when they're living in the shelter, they're able to learn trade skills and produce goods that we sell at government here, and we'll be selling at Benefit Dinner, which helps provide them a vocation, which helps overcome some of the stigma that is associated with HIV and AIDS. So that's relating it directly back to our partner. Some of you guys are a little bit finishing up a little bit early. If there's any additional information you can put in that relates to those topics, then that would be a good thing to do. Or you could just listen to me talk until the timer goes off. So we're going to go in your groups. If you could each within yourselves assign yourselves a number of 1 to 4, just however you guys want to do that. Just take like 5 seconds right now. Good.
What's that? What's that?
Just assign yourselves a number of 1 to 4.
There we go.
Good. Okay, all right. So now the 1s from each group will be moving over here. The 2s from each group over here. The 3s from each group over here, and the 4s from each group over here.
This is incredibly complicated for me. Personally. Who's one over here? Oh, thank God it's not Reba. Who's one here?
I got another.
Sonia?
Yes.
Sorry. Do you want to say anything to anyone at home?
That was too much pressure at once. I hope you guys are eating. Yes, I don't know. That's what I would do, girl.
I'm gonna turn this Oh,
All right.
Kirsten, do you want to
now,
close the circle?
take your first second to introduce yourselves, figure out like, you know, which section you guys came from, and then whatever you guys.
Ooh, nice catch. Nice catch. All right, team. Make sure you speak up so the computer catches you. This is on the recording. It feels so weird referring to the recording too. Sorry, Jansel.
I think people are on.
All right. This feels so weird. I don't watch the YouTube videos. So guys, if you're watching the YouTube videos, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. I guess they're already subscribed if they're watching. But cool. All right, I'm just gonna sit this over here. Fine. Maybe a lot of pressure for you, some, yeah.
It's just too much. Excited to present. So I'm going to talk about HIV symptoms. So as you guys can see, there's
Smart.
so yeah, you experience a lot of muscle aches, swollen lymph nodes, fatigue, night sweats, ulcers, like in your mouth, your anus, or your genitals, experience headaches, weight loss, sore throats, and fevers. I don't know if I mentioned but, okay, cool. And then as I mentioned, the presentation mentioned earlier, AIDS is a little bit different than HIV. I guess it's like the third stage. If I'm correct. Yeah. And so you experience a little bit more, or a little bit of different symptoms, including memory loss, extreme tiredness, pneumonia, diarrhea, if it, or that usually lasts longer than a week. And yeah. Oh, and then some like patches under the skin or inside the eyes. And then it can be split up into 3 stages from what I've read. Acute HIV, the symptoms start occurring after like the first 2 to 4 weeks after infection. And this is like when it multiplies very quickly, and then you start experiencing the symptoms that are very flu-like. But you can also be asymptomatic, so you should get tested if you have even like the slightest concern. And then in the second stage, the virus keeps multiplying and the immune system starts weakening. And I did not know that. You can go 10 years without symptoms. Yeah, and then the third stage, sorry, I didn't make all of this, but yeah, the third stage is AIDS, and that's the symptoms mentioned.
Nice. Lots of information. For us, any chance you could pull up the Groovy?
Huh?
Can you pull up the Groovy on the computer? Or do you have it on the computer?
I can pull it up.
And I can pull on my phone too, but it's tiny screen. We did treatment and prevention. So we talked about yes, that one, perfect. Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it. All right.
So,
Thank you. All right, for treatment and prevention, we talked about prevention methods. So we talked about HIV testing regularly. So we did annual testing, but you can do it more regularly depending on your risk factors. So if you're more sexually active or you're frequently using needles, get HIV tested more often. Using condoms, other protective measures, pretty straightforward stuff. Getting your normal vaccinations is really important when you have HIV, because opportunistic infections can be prevented in a lot of ways by your normal vaccines. That's the real killer with HIV and AIDS, the diseases that you're not really prepared for. Having open conversations with your children, sexual partners, and then ensuring you're maintaining your immune system in its best shape possible. So HIV and AIDS, obviously, the big issue is that your immune system, I think it was like CD something cells, are just getting killed off by the virus. So your goal is to maintain your immune system strength for as long as possible, to prevent those opportunistic infections from hurting you. So there's different ways to maintain your immune system. Don't drink. Avoid drinking, just preserve your liver as much as possible. Another important part about that is that all the drugs, that antiretrovirals and stuff like that you take to treat HIV are processed through your liver. So if your immune system or your metabolic function is lowered, which alcohol does both, you're obviously going to have less effective treatments for your HIV and also just worse immune system function. And emphasize testing for mothers, especially expecting mothers in target populations. Obviously, those most at risk of receiving or spreading HIV. Thanks, Josh. Treatment and care. There's antiretroviral therapy. So that's multiple daily medications to treat your HIV. And then we talked about this next part. Yeah, start medication as soon as you can after being diagnosed, especially pregnant women. Different patients have varying needs. Obviously, and then consider how HIV medicines could affect other medications being taken. So a lot of drug-drug interactions, especially the strain between your liver and immune system. Yeah, and we linked Caracol on here, and we'll send these slides later. Caracol is a Cincinnati org that does a lot of work with HIV positive patients. Provides a lot of different resources from like mental health to physical health and testing. And they have a lot of helpful stuff on there for people who just recently been diagnosed with HIV. So I think that was it. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, Josh.
Okay, well, I can talk about transitions. We didn't do like a PowerPoint presentation, but it's pretty like kind of touched on a little bit about it, but some like new ones which you kind of like saw in CDC. So first we have like unprotected sex, obviously, and then we have blood transfusions, which I remember clearly like when the epidemic was happening, when it was like only like in marginalized communities like gay men, they weren't really paying attention. Right? They weren't like putting their resources and time into it. But once it started showing up in like women, like people not in those marginalized communities because of like blood transfusions, like they would get blood, some of them had HIV or AIDS, and then they would then get it, and they're like, why did it get it? Like, oh well, we just got a blood transfusion a week ago. Some of that was like one of the breakthroughs that kind of like put more money into it. It's like, wait, this is gonna like actually spread outside of marginalized communities. There's also like unsafe needles, so making sure that like they're transfusing anything like clean needles all the time. And there's like needle exchange programs. I think
Yeah, that's like a harm reduction.
Yeah, harm reduction. And then there's also one thing is like things you should not like be like this is a false information. It can't be transmitted through saliva, sweat, or tears. And so like obviously with the singles and toilet seat thing, that's obviously false.
So false.
False.
So
Yeah.
false. So false. So false. Yeah. Just my signals. My pure toilet seats in general.
And then like when we look at the CDC, there's like other like rare occurrences, right? Because they have to always report there's like 1 or 2 cases of like people got HIV/AIDS. Surprisingly, someone apparently got through biting.
Were they bitten or someone else? Bit
someone bit them. I don't really know, but
someone bit them and gave them HIV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
interesting.
the CDC has a report.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But it's like this, like they like basically put on the like the rare occurrence. Like it's like maybe
It could have been some
one
other
of like
factors somehow too.
exactly like you don't never know.
This is the case from the US.
This is just the CDC had like a fact sheet of like ways you can get transmitted HIV, ways you can't get it, and then like rare ways you can't get it.
Because if it's not the US, I guess there's a lot of stigma around it. So you might want to like hide the fact that you have sexual intercourse and something like that.
Which
Yeah.
could
Drug
also
use.
exactly because
Second
it can't be transmitted through saliva, sweat, or tears. So I'm like trying to think like
Could they have had an open sore? Maybe even then.
like
it would
that's
have
what
to
we're
be-
like talking about. Like, okay, well, do they have like blood?
Yeah,
Blood.
that's all
Anyways,
we're thinking about. If it was such a rare
yeah.
occurrence, yeah.
And then there's also been a case where like I guess a caregiver like mashed up food in their mouth and then gave to an infant. That was also a thing, but I don't know how that would work.
Could have been a similar case. It's
Similar
not,
case, but basically it's unprotected sex, blood transfusions, unsafe needles, and that's all. Like basically the overall thing is bodily fluids. If you're getting contact with bodily fluids from someone who has HIV/AIDS.
All right, good work.
So we went over the political context. We didn't make slides either, but as Pedro was saying, it was since the virus like HIV was first identified in men loving man community, and then other than that, it was also when it was officially recognized, it was CDC reported that it was disproportionately affecting Blacks, African Americans, and Hispanic Latino Americans. So the policymakers were like really slow to respond to that, and also moreover after. Even on top of that, it was since we now know that it can spread through needle use or like sexual intercourse. So it was also seen in the drug addicts and then people who were having
All right, guys,
sex
I'm gonna give you guys like 2-ish more minutes to wrap up conversations, and then we can continue them in the large group. And then-
having sex for money or like prostitution. So it was really hard to get it recognized. And then early in the pandemic, misinformation, as we just talked about, was also abundant. So it was really hard to talk about it publicly. There was a lot of stigma around it. People were not like socializing with people that were affected with HIV/AIDS. Because they fear that it might spread through being close to them. Another like very important part in the like 1990s was when a young guy named like Rand White got into blood transfusion, and he was like barred entry from his high school. So he went to court over that, and he essentially just became like the spokesperson of HIV/AIDS people in the US. So it helped a lot, and he like fought for what the
All right, guys,
social
let's start getting back to the like.
political context
I'm hearing
brought
really good
forward.
conversations.
And other than that, there were also like the LGBTQ movements, which helped make it more mainstream and give
Okay,
people access
guys,
to
we're gonna
better
move on.
healthcare.
Thanks for talking. It's great. So the first question was, HIV virus can transmit to everybody. What do we think about this? Just talk. Okay, we're done. So like, what do you guys think about that? Oh, sorry.
Oh my God, that's true. It can, because there's so many ways, like anyone can get it through like unprotected sex, just like sharing needles, blood transfusions, in the womb, or like through breastfeeding. So anyone can get it.
Sounds about right. What about number 2?
False.
Yes.
Sharing your toilet's not gonna get you HIV.
For real?
Yeah, you can't get HIV from a toilet seat.
You can't?
Cannot.
Okay.
Very important distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, I think relating it back to what Kylie said, a lot of it is just through like bodily fluid exchange, but like in terms of like blood and usually like sex is like the other main one. And unprotected, actually. And then what about number 3? It's another transmitted question.
Well, I gotta take this one because I grew up in West Africa and mosquitoes, a lot. We have malaria. It's okay to say have malaria in Africa because it's just normal life. I grew up knowing that mosquitoes could transfer HIV/AIDS. Well, you guys gotta say whether it's right or not, but this is how we were taught because the female anaphylaxis mosquito, it gets in your system and then it gets the blood of the person, so it comes to another person and bites the other person, and so through the biting, the female anaphylaxis mosquito just exchanges the fluid, right? So if I get your fluid, you have HIV, I go to another person, I exchange the fluid with another person, then you can get it. That's what we were taught, but I don't know.
Yeah, so when I was looking into this, there actually haven't been research studies or like any findings so far of mosquitoes actually causing HIV. But with malaria, 100% true. And a part of me does wonder, like, because like malaria, it's like, oh, if you get malaria through mosquitoes, sometimes I wonder how like HIV would be treated if it was like that. But from what I've seen and read, so far no cases really. Yeah.
Have been recorded for mosquitoes transferring.
Yeah.
I think it would be a very cool research to look into whether mosquitoes can do that in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, just more confidence. And what about number 4? This one actually like, it's not something that was really talked about in the groups. It's just something I found really interesting. And but from Kylie's part, like we did talk about like what it does to your body. So based off of that, what do you guys think? Yeah. I think in the answer slide I have like exact statistic, but increases your chance of death if you're diagnosed with COVID-19 and you have HIV. I think it's by, I want to say like somewhere between like 70 to 95%. Like it's a really big number. And then
78 to 95.
yes, thank you. And then just like you know, when we're talking about like the whole mask mandates at the university, and just like on that level where it's just like some of it just feels very random, like just like looking at the populations that are just kind of being overlooked by all this stuff when we like take into account like, you know, these like measures of like vaccines, masks and stuff. But what about number 5?
I don't know what the pill is, but I don't
Yeah,
think so.
does someone like from the treatment group or whatever that group's name was want to present about this a little bit? Talk about that. I heard some really good conversation from Perry, and not trying to put him on the spot, but
Okay, so I wasn't in the treatment group.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
I just want to talk about it because let's be very careful about if the pill is to prevent pregnancy, then it's not.
This is a different pill, sorry.
It's a different pill.
It's-
Okay.
It's not the famous pill. Sorry.
I think
PrEP
the
is,
second group should go ahead and explain a little bit.
Okay.
PrEP is essentially a prophylactic that they recently developed, like, was it like 7 years ago or something like that?
Okay,
To,
I thought it was a pill for the other.
no, it's not that pill, it's not that pill.
yeah, I
Um,
said the pill. There's a lot of things.
There's a more famous pill out there. But it's essentially a prophylactic, like preventative treatment that you can take if you're exposed to these frequent, like high-risk behaviors like needle sharing, blood transfusions, or just frequent sex. I don't know. So essentially, it's a preventative measure that most people are eligible to go through with.
Yeah, anyone else from treatment? Do you guys want to add on to that?
So it lowers your risk of like, correct me if I'm wrong, it like lowers your risk of like getting it and transmitting it.
I'm pretty sure I could be entirely wrong about this, but I think it like blocks the receptors from actually binding to the host cell.
Yeah, that is like the biological reason why, like, yeah, you can't.
So then it's not like going through all the rest of the phases.
Yeah, the main point is just to like prevent this part.
So then the question has not been answered. Is it more effective or because now I know how it works, but is it more effective than condoms?
Yeah, well, what do you guys think? It's a post-test, not
Yeah.
for me.
I feel like this is kind of a fun trick question almost. I mean, like, you're obviously always gonna want to have some form of protective sex. Because that's gonna prevent from other like sexually transmitted infections. So I feel like whether it's like more effective or not, it's a little bit more nuanced to like this individual cases. Like it's great if you have access to both, but you should use both if you have access to both. It's not like, oh, I haven't taken PrEP, so I shouldn't wear condoms like this time around, right? Like you should use both. So I'm gonna go with this.
Yeah, so, actually.
Or is it true?
Yeah. So, yeah, I did try to make it like a trick question because I think it opens up a lot of discussion. So, in terms of just like preventing the spread of HIV, PrEP is more effective than condom. But with that being said, public health officials are very hesitant to like tell the public about this because then people are like, okay, then that means I don't have to wear condoms. But no, there are other STDs that are out there, and there are other ways to like get other things. I think the next slide I had said like, don't be silly, protect your willy. Like, definitely, it's just like it's more effective. But with that being said, like using both is always like the best way to like protect yourself from not just like HIV but other infections too, and like plus HIV. So because it's the chances are low, but like never zero. And what about number 6? Okay, I'm seeing no's, but how about we verbalize something? That'd be interesting. Yes. Unproblematic thing, right? I'm just kidding. Very problematic thing. Don't feel sorry for that. All right, what about number 7?
I think it's a little confusing too. Like the initial exposure to HIV can result in just in some minor symptoms like a rash, fever, chills, but after those like initial symptoms appear, then it is asymptomatic for a while until it does progress into AIDS. So like usually it is, which is why it's important to get this.
Yeah, so you kind of nailed it. So basically, yeah, it's like some people get the flu-like symptoms, but usually it's like pretty asymptomatic, and that's why people always say like testing is the key for this stuff. You just like you never know, and just because it's just so common, like it's always good to get tested. And then yeah, once you have AIDS, like those symptoms start popping up. So yeah, these are the answers. I can give you guys like reasons to look at it. Yeah, the statistically 78 to 95, and I even have the research study on that because I thought it was really interesting. Naga, I think she has stuff to say. Oh yeah, you guys have to guess the word. Wait.
Caillou?
No.
Yes, it's gross. No, it's not. It's actually cats. We just like pick random things to post with now. Like before we were like, oh, we'll do words, and then it's just turned into something else.
How is that a W?
There's no doubt.
Oh, okay. I thought you guys did a really like abstract bro for sure.
Honestly, I was thinking about posting this on social media and be like, look at our grow team spelling grow, and then just doing something completely different.
And then you want to do a quick intro to what GROW is.
Oh yeah, sorry, talking about that. So GROW stands for grass-based consult work, which it is one of the ways that we use to like build a relationship with a partner and give them like technical assistance. I think Naga can actually go more into this while she like talks about her updates.
Yeah, so well, I can talk a little bit about like our meetings with ATL. So firstly,
Now you
we're
can
doing-
speak up just a tiny bit.
Oh,
for,
sorry. Yeah.
thanks.
So this 2022 Grow internship, we're doing like virtual over the summer, and then we're hoping to go like more in person during winter break. And then also our training is about to start since it's like almost mid-March. And so each of us have like individual projects that we're working on. We probably get more into that in our like Grow party meeting that's like gonna come up soon in the semester. But like in terms of general updates, I can talk a little bit about ATL. He's like our main person that we talked to at SAW. And one of the projects that he told us that he's working on in our calls is like publishing interviews. He did about like 200 interviews. Each of them are about an hour, 20 minutes long. And they're kind of focused around like debt and how sometimes like the conditions of like some of the people, how they like kind of resort to selling their kids or even like suicide because they don't really have any option and kind of like the limited infrastructure that they have. So they're kind of like fending for themselves. So those interviews are going to be in depth talking about their stories. And then we also talked a little bit about like welfare organizations, which was kind of like eye-opening for me personally, because he was talking about how a lot of these welfare organizations, like the people in power, are corrupt, and he said about only 20% of the funding that they raise actually goes towards like the welfare and the programs, and a lot of them just take in like refugees and displaced people for show, for their own like political reasons. And a lot of the projects that they do aren't even long-term or sustainable. And currently there's like no organization in Mesa area that even helps the migrants. So just because a lot of people don't want to put in the effort to take their time to go and talk to these people and listen to their stories because of just like transportation too. So those are some of the things that we're
Yeah, like going off of that, it was interesting because like on the Glow Med side, we always talk about like, you know, like work with your partner at the level and like stuff like that. But there are just so many organizations out there and like there's no accountability. And ATL, like he was just telling us his perspective where it's like he's gotten like offers from like other companies where they're like, oh, like we will we'll pay you this much if you like work in our global health organization. Like you won't really be doing anything, but you will have a higher salary, which is good because like, you know, like people in your area like obviously are not making that much money. Like they'll pull up the statistics and they'll tell them. And then ATL is just like, yeah, like I've had to turn them down because it just doesn't go with my own like, you know, like moral like compass and just things like that. And it's just like interesting to see it from his point of view because the truth is it's like in that region, like there's a lot of migrants that they face the issue of just like, you know, being like migrants and like refugees. And there's also the part where it's like COVID on top of that. And then like we kind of touched this on the last partnership presentation, like the amount of struggle that they face. And like ATL was saying like these people make it's around like $3 US a day, like a day to like support their families. And then on top of that, it's like pregnant women. Like we had like a very big conversation on that. So a lot of what GROW has done so far is we have calls like every 2-ish weeks where we just kind of like talk about these issues and also just really understanding it. And then we have the opportunity to develop these projects. And our projects definitely take into account like the sustainability aspect of it and like understanding like what we bring to the table. And then what HQ is going to do is like it's just going to help us like really understand like what the GROW team does and stuff like that. So we're going to have a GROW party at the end of the year, which will be really fun, and hopefully you guys can you know, talk to us about GROW a little bit, and we'll share like from our side. And also if you're interested, you're always welcome to just reach out and we'll be happy to talk to you guys. And there's a lot of past GROW interns here too. So yeah, I think that is the update I have. And do you have anything to add?
That's a good question. You're talking about the interviews that HL is doing. Should I ask, like, is that a project that HL is able to do through SAW, or like what?
He doesn't do it through SAW. It's
Is it like a university project that he's doing?
I think it's just an external project because he graduated. It's just like with another organization that he's working with. So yeah, with ATL, WOMED isn't just the only organization he works with. He manages like different organizations because a lot of it, it's used to like help SAW and like fund their stuff too. And yeah. So just a few things, just because we're on the topic of HIV. Tomorrow there's actually free testing at TUC. It's 20 minutes and it's with Paracle, which is this organization in Cincinnati that provides like confidential testing. And yeah, it's just like a finger prick test. You'll get your results in 20 minutes. I think it's like it's on campus links. Like if you just wanted to send it to someone or just like share the information, I think that would be really good. One more thing. So Dr. Blackard actually sent out this message to like a few of my classes, but he is accepting enrollment for his class, which is HIV/AIDS. He does a lot of work in this field, and I think he's came into a GLOMED meeting before. So he's a really great guy, and he has purple hair. That's all I really remember. Like, it's very distinct. But I've heard like so many good things about his class, and like I'm enrolled in it. So if you guys want to join me, that'd be really cool.
It's
But-
not even too crazy of a class. I think the whole grade is one exam, like halfway or most of the way through the semester. And it's pretty in depth, but the exam itself is pretty friendly. And he's a really cool teacher, so he knows a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think right here in the grading, it says your grade is on a 50-question online final exam. That's on November 16th. And then like, that's the grade, like that's all you have. But he has like modules and like really interesting resources that you can read through and stuff like that. So it's just really insightful if you're really passionate about topics related to it. Oh, benefit.
Here's your-
I was really
Okay, well, kind of like redoing what we did last week. Got the dinner tickets are on sale. We got a couple tickets in, so that's good. But we still want to reach out more. I think Maria's gonna send another email with like the same information, invite plus the link to basically buy the tickets. All I ask for you guys to do is send the forwarded email. Just forward it to people you want. Research mentors are good. Colleagues, you know, people in your workplace. Maybe even doctors you've shadowed or had a good experience with them. I think it's all good research that you can like reach out to. That way, when you forward the email, it's like a little personalized message. Just they don't think it's like a spam, you know, because it is obviously sent out to like all of our contacts. So that's all I ask for you guys to do. It's really simple, and I've basically done that to a couple of people I wanted to invite. So we're like less than a month away. So get ready. We're gonna be talking a lot of benefit dinner announcements, and we're gearing up for some auction baskets and stuff like that. If anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to me,
It's also a great opportunity if you invite those professors to talk to them outside of class, because I know you don't really get that experience super often.
Yeah.
That was helpful last year, I thought.
I think Dr. Lippman attended a couple of them.
I can't remember. It was another doctor who I invited and the pregnant.
Wait, is it Mrs. Dr. Lieberman?
No, it doesn't matter really.
But yeah, also invite faculty, teachers. whatever.
Yeah.
I'll email her right now.
I mean,
Anyways,
if we
thank
get
you.
the hey, she likes.
Yeah, so again, that email is gonna come out. Just forward it to whoever you'd like to come to benefit dinner. Yeah, again, open bar for anyone 21 plus. So that's important, right? That's a big selling point. They can come
And there's good
chill.
food.
And it's really good food. We chose the menu,
Yeah, we
so we're
chose
proud of it.
What's on the menu?
We can tell you after the meeting if you want.
Okay.
Next up, co-pres elections are coming up. That's gonna be the Sunday after spring break. And again, that meeting will be recorded. So basically how that meeting is gonna go is anyone who's running will get the chance to share their platform and a PowerPoint. And then they can just kind of talk about why they want to be co-pres, what they've done, what experience they have, and ideas they might have for GLOMED the next year. So it's a super important thing to make sure you, at least, even if you can't make it, because I know spring break travel plans are kind of tough, to try and check out those platforms, the email we send out after, and vote. And then anyone who has questions about that can reach out to me or Noah. And yeah, again, sorry, not again. We won't be having a meeting this next Sunday because everyone's going to be on spring break. So until then, it'll be 2 weeks. So the next meeting we have, co-pres elections, big time. Any questions there right now? If not, afterwards. And covered all that. Awesome. Anyone who hasn't gotten a chance to sign in, go ahead and scan that QR code. I know at least 3 people, so take your time. Huh? I did.
Especially cited if you haven't gotten a benefits in your email. That way we have your email and you can get that.
Sam, did you get signed in?
I think so.
Perfect. Did you get signed, Kylie?
Yeah.
Emma?
Simeon didn't know.
Sim, you didn't?
Oh, wait.
Simeon never signed in.
I have another one.
Yes.
We're gonna be doing with the Instagram bingo board campaign this week. So every committee will be doing it. We're gonna have a specific day. So we're gonna talk about it in board, but you should probably get a message from sometime later.
Cool. Bingo. We love bingo. It's the theme of the week. Also unrelated to GLOMED, Josephine's Clinic is doing a Chipotle fundraiser on Wednesday. It's a clinic that supports survivors of human trafficking. Really cool stuff. If you have questions about it, ask me. But Wednesday, 5 to 9 at the Chipotle on Stetson. So that's the one north of campus, not the one on Calhoun Street. 33%. Yes, you guys know how Chipotle fundraisers work. Yeah. All right. With that, does anyone have a collective breath quote? Naga, did you have a hand up?
No.
Oh, okay. Anything profound? Anything calming? Anything enraging? We can mix it up. Yeah, quote, go ahead. Speak it loud, Perry.
We do a homework assignment 1 minute before it's due. It only takes you a minute to do it.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's done. That's real, especially on a Sunday night. Did you have another one, Shivani?
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring up that Paul Farmer died.
I think we talked about it last week, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not to.
It's just kind of been around my head lately. So I feel like, I don't know, I was like, oh my, like, in some alternate universe, I would meet him. I don't know, like, obviously, that's not happening.
I mean, if it's an alternate universe.
Yeah, in that universe, I met Paul Farmer.
There you go. Do you have a quote
Yeah.
for this universe? I guess. I mean,
Or for this one, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go quote for this universe by Paul Farmer.
perfect.
The idea that some lives matter less is the root of all that is wrong with the world. That's it.
All
That's
right. With that, anyone want to lead collective breath? Because again, I cannot do
I'll
this.
lead it.
Go ahead, Shivani.
So if you don't mind softening your gaze and closing your eyes. Take a deep breath in with me. And down.
All right. Good work today, guys. We had some very good conversations. Appreciate you all like, being super involved. This is so sad for me. I only have like 8 weeks left here. I'm never allowed back. And it's beyond that, committee time. Oh, I mean, I'll chill for like 1 or 2 more. Whoever's co-president next, they're gonna have to deal with it.
Next year, we're gonna have to sign up though, they're based on the picks.
I would be honored, actually. Notoriety is all I really want from this.
No, it's allowed.
Oh, I just messed up everything. With that committee time though, so if your committee leader isn't here, come to me. But if not, find your committee, check in for a few minutes, do what you gotta do.